Hey guys, TJ here from Hyper Coliseum, and today I have a bit of a different video for you. So we've had a couple of requests asking us for a video on where to start with the Digimon TCG. What decks are best, what are easiest to pick up, what won't what won't break the bank. You know, basically staying as viable as possible without, making your wallet go. So I went ahead and I've sort of done some research. I've picked out a few decks that I think sort of cover a good basis of the game while offering good tools for aggression and control, and also managing to stay meta relevant and doing all of the things that other decks can do. They are completely viable and competitive decks that at the very least in your local scene or maybe in a smaller online community you can do pretty well with and have some fun with. And it's definitely a good place to start. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and go over why some people want to play the Digimon TCG. The Digimon TCG has many things to offer, from its unique memory gauge system all the way to how Bandai and its designers managed to make the cards feel thematic and in line with their lore, be it from just their general background that is made for them, or their manga or anime, etc., right? Or even video games as well. There's loads of video game references from the artwork to their effects throughout all of the cards in the Digimon TCG, at least the ones that, are connected to the video games that are relevant with it. So that's pretty cool. Whether you're a TCG veteran, someone who's been around the scene for a long time and are looking for a new side or main game to pick up to sort of mess around with, or you're new blood, right? A young buck looking to sort of get into their first real experience with ripping open packs and seeing shiny cardboard and learning how to snap down that cardboard just right to make sure your effects go off the way you intend. And so with that all in mind, right, veterans will already probably have their scenes and whatnot, but for new folks, where do you start? Where do you sort of get your footing in this crazy place? Well, the best thing to do usually is find a local scene. Check out your local card shops. Ask around. Maybe you have some friends that you know that are playing TCGs that you weren't even aware of. It's a pretty common hobby nowadays. And with all that in mind, there's no need to start alone, right? You can start with friends. You can maybe see if a couple of buddies of yours want to jump in and play with you. Maybe if you don't even have a local card shop scene, you guys can just play together and just have fun, just pick up where you can and learn what you can, and who knows, maybe you start delving into other communities from there. And when I mention other communities, I mean online communities. There's loads of Discords out there that have so many people around. You can check Reddit, YouTube, I'm sure even Facebook as well, have plenty of different communities for card games in general. And the Digimon TCG especially has loads of local communities that tend to gather around some sort of online hub to communicate and organize things as best they can. And so that's a good fallback. If you are someone who maybe doesn't have any friends that are interested in getting into card games, maybe you don't have a local shop that's really doing like Digimon Locals or anything like that, you can always jump into online communities. Our Discord being a great example, which you can find in the link down below. But even aside from that, there are plenty others out there. And even if you are struggling to find a community to really click with online, you can always use online sims that are available, like DCGO and Drazel. They're both fantastic resources for just even testing out things and learning the game in general. So the next step naturally would be, well, what deck? What deck am I going to play with? What am I going to learn the game with? What am I going to be able to really sort of delve in and find what clicks right with me? And that's where the focus of today's video comes in. This is what this video is for. This video is intended to help you find the right deck for you, or at least some place to start without breaking the bank, without making your wallet feel not so good, Mr. Stark. And picking a deck can be hard. There are loads of decks to choose in the Digimon TCG, but let's not get too crazy with it. We won't get into the thick of things with how complicated certain decks can be or certain board interactions. And keeping in mind your guys' wallets, we're going to try and do our best here to make sure that you guys find the right deck for you, something that's going to feel right. Anyways, though, let's go ahead and move on to the 3 decks that I have picked. And keep in mind, these are my personal picks. I understand everyone's going to have their own opinions on what decks are best to start with. And admittedly, I'm going to go over some of the newer structure decks towards the end of the video. So don't worry for people that are going to jump into the comment section and go, why doesn't he just instantly talk about the new Fable Waltz decks and the new Bird Zafagamon deck? And why does he talk about the new Terrier? Well, don't worry. I'm going to talk about those, but I wanted to talk about a couple of other decks that I think are technically more meta relevant at the moment, or at least are maybe a bit more staple or mainstream in a way. All of these decks that I've picked, they offer viable strategies that I think can keep up with the current metas at the very bare minimum at your local scenes. They make use of the ace mechanic and effects that are pretty easily understood. They're pretty straightforward. They do one thing. If they don't do it, then they do this. Or if they don't do it, then they don't do anything. That's about it. And all while, of course, like I said before, keeping your wallet in mind. So let's jump in. So, the first deck that I picked is Gallantmon. He is a fan favorite from the Digimon Tamers anime. He is the mega form of Guilmon, Takato Matsuki's partner Digimon, who is, I mean, the cutest guy. And he's voiced by one of my personal favorite voice actors, Steve Blum, in the anime, who's known for roles such as Wolverine or Spike from Cowboy Bebop. Also Mugen. Can't forget about Mugen. Samurai Champloo, Chef Kiss, baby. So what makes this deck tick? Well, it's a red deck, first of all. So it's a very sort of aggressive deck. It's a playstyle, and it's one thing you learn about red in general is red is a very aggressive playstyle. And when choosing what deck I wanted to put in this section, I opted with Gallantmon because he just recently received probably some of the most significant support he's received in a while, and he's got more support in future sets coming up. BT19, for example, he has a whole other new line that he's getting with some other new effects that seem to be pretty powerful, and a new tamer that seems very, very good. And I know people are going to be saying, well, what about WarGreymon? What about Red Hybrid? Well, WarGreymon I thought about, but I was like, well, you know, it hasn't been super relevant for a while now, and while it's still a good deck, and I think it's something that you can very easily get into the game with, it's a bit trickier with how toolboxy its build can be. And I think it's something that, since, you know, I just wanted to do Gallantmon. And kind of the same thing with Red Hybrid. Red Hybrid is very, very, very powerful. I probably would have leaned into talking more about the Emperor Gray variant than the Ancient Gray variant. But we did just recently have a deck profile we did on the Ancient Gray variant with our very own Jarell. If you want to check that out, I'll go ahead and link that in the description down below. But otherwise, that's about it. You know, I just wanted to do Gallant. I think it's a good guy, and recently I've been seeing it do more than either of the other two decks, honestly, which is crazy that it didn't do anything for so long. For so long, it was just a dead deck. What are some of the pros? It has some of the best board control in the game, trashes security pretty consistently. It can punish decks like purple strategies that tend to build large trashes, can be surprisingly memory efficient so long as it's actually deleting things, and has excellent new ace top end with the new Gallantmon Crimson Mode ace, which I will go ahead and I will flash somewhere on the screen here. The deck's fun. It's something that's pretty straightforward. You can utilize training options to help you reduce your Digivolution costs while gaining memory for clearing board. And there's loads of tools that it has now, and the deck has enough lines of Growlmons and Guilmons that you can utilize to really kind of customize the build in your own way and make it work best for you. And it's only going to get more. And it's a deck that, without any doubt in my mind, is going to receive more and more support as the game goes on, as he is a protagonist Digimon. He is a member of the Royal Knights. He's cool. I mean, he's a cool virus knight with a big lance and a shield, which finally he's using the shield now with BT17 Gallant. Thank goodness. For the longest time, that thing was just a decoration, an ornament on his arm. But yeah, the deck can oftentimes look something like this. You will be able to sort of see more of this deck and a bit more in depth with our recent deck profile we just did with our local Gallantmon player, Sunny. He is a fantastic Gallantmon player. He's won locals with it. He usually does pretty well at locals with it in general. And yeah, I think he's just a very good deck builder, and this is a very good example deck to start with, and it's something that keeps your bank account not hurting too much. The most expensive card in here is the Gallantmon Secret Rare from BT13, which here's the price here. There's much more expensive and worse things than this, believe me. But it gets way worse. And besides, I mean, who isn't gonna like a deck that makes you feel like this?
I'm gonna pop this one, and then I'm gonna pop this one, and then I'm gonna pop this one. Pop this one.
For reference, I'm talking about the guy that's popping things, the me that's popping things, not the me that's whining about it. But like every deck, what are some of its cons, right? Every deck has some downsides, some things that aren't very good. That, you know, that it's going to have tough matchups and such like that. And Gallant very much has those, just like all the decks that I'm listing here today. And I'm going to go over those so that you understand what you're getting into as you sort of debate which deck maybe to start with out of these three, or maybe other decks that you're trying to think about, and just some other general effects to keep in mind when you're picking a deck in general. So its cons. Doesn't really have great protections. The first protection we've ever gotten on a Gallantmon is the BT17 Gallant. This Gallantmon is designed very much so to work with your EX2 Takato, right? Where he is going to, when you Digivolve into this Gallantmon, you're going to gain Blitz, and then you're going to be able to swing once the memory is at 1 or more on your opponent's side. basically it's an end of turn swing that you can do that, you know, it just helps you basically be able to pass turn when you evo into it and be able to still get some damage off, right? And his effect being a 1 digivolving and a 1 attacking effect, it's not once per turn, means that he can control board very well with his inheritables, or just gain DP and blocker and do crazy stuff. But for that brief window, that small moment while he's swinging at security, any effects that he hits in security, any cards that would ace Digivolve when he swings and finishes resolving his 1 attacking effects, if there's anything left on the board, anything that would, you know, try and hurt him when he's swinging and when your opponent's at 1 or more memory while you're still resolving your effects, it's still considered your turn. So you are protected from everything. So you'll be able to swing, do your stuff, do your damage, but then of course after the attack's over, and if you're still stuck suspended and it passes over your opponent's turn, then your protection is gone, and you are very, very much susceptible to anything they may choose to do to you if they have the ability to do so. And aside from that, it can be a little bit bricky. And finally, he can struggle with things that have high DP thresholds. While this new Gallant is very, very good at gaining DP, naming the BT17 one, and you have inheritables from like your BT12, Gallantmon line, and Gallantmon that can give you extra DP, it still can struggle with some of those higher DP bodies like Magnamon X or Tyrant Kabuterimon, for example, that can just be these big, massive blockers that are very hard to pull off the board. Or even actually Dexter Agora as well. It can also be very, very annoying to get around that without being punished by it. But all those things being said, I think that a lot of the pros outweigh the cons, and the deck is still very fun at the end of the day. And admittedly, a lot of the card art is beautiful, right? And it's a super fun strategy. It's just very aggressive. If you just want to just go ahead and Oonga Boonga, I would recommend this. Or like I said earlier in the video, either like Red Hybrid or War Gray. Those are fine too. I'm not going to flash whole things for those or whatever, but those are decks that you can look into on your own that have plenty of different strategies. Or like I said, you can, at the very least, you can check out the deck profiles for Red Hybrid or even the Gallant profile too, if you want to just get a more in-depth look at this deck itself. Okay, so what's next? And let me just, because I can already hear the comment section now. I can hear the anger, the rage broiling in you, much like Bruce Banner. You're always angry. That's your secret, Cap, right? MirageGaogamon. Now hold up. I know. Believe me, as somebody who was best friends with this guy, with that guy, okay? I play against this deck all the time. I know how painful it can be. This deck makes people generate more hate in their bodies. They get a hate boner so strong for this deck that is erected taller than the Eiffel Tower. It's impressive. Genuinely. Just genuinely how much just this deck lightning rods anger towards it. But with that all being said, with that in mind, even if you hate the deck is affordable. It's a good deck. It offers good board control and hand control at the same time. It has the unique trait of being able to bounce security rather than trashing it or just having to check it. It is easily the most memory efficient deck in the game. Can even be so memory efficient that it can steal turns off of your opponent if they're not paying attention. And on top of all of that, it has the ability to ignore redirects and blockers, so long as you play into the correct, circumstances and requirements to, activate those things. And I guess I should also mention that it can consistently have jamming in the stack. And on top of that too, the second you hear someone ask you, "Oh, what's your hand size?" it tends to go a little something like this. Okay, so how many cards on hand? What?
How many? I said how many?
And I know what you're thinking. If you're the guy that's, turning purple like a grape from being choked out by the MirageGaogamon player, you probably don't feel too good. And admittedly, that's how your opponent's probably going to feel 90% of the time when they play against you if, you are able to build the right line. But that all being said, it does take patience to build these lines, right? And if you're the person that's, doing the, the thing, you're going to feel pretty good probably, right? And all while not hurting your bank account too intensely. And being able to, be probably the most meta-relevant deck that's on this list today. But that being said, that doesn't mean Mirage doesn't have its cons. It's a deck that can very much have its drawbacks. There is things that it can't do, right? It can't live against security bombs. It hits a security bomb, that guy's gone. He's out of here. He ain't sticking around no more. The deck doesn't have protections. Aside from the BT13 MirageGaogamon that has the ability to evade, at the moment, it doesn't have anything. And so, you know, that's kind of the drawback with it, right? Where it's basically all or nothing. And if it does hit a security bump, sometimes that usually can put them far back enough where they're just gonna fall off at the game at that point. This deck doesn't DP climb very well, right? It has some of the BT13 pieces that can give it plus 1 KDP if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand. However, it doesn't do much DP climbing outside of that. It usually just sits at its 12k when it's a MirageGaoga, or it's at 15k if it's a burst mode. A lot of times it needs the correct inheritables to really pop off, right? It needs to have that jamming inheritable in the stack, which while that's fairly easy for it to accomplish nowadays, it's still something it can whiff on. Very, very much so. And between not having consistent protections and needing to build the correct stack, it takes a little bit of setup. Keep in mind, if you do decide to buy this deck as a new player, you might catch some side eyes, so you just be mindful of that. I'm just letting you know. But at the end of the day, the deck is very fun. It has very good control options, and while some people will tell you it doesn't really teach you the game very well, it has plenty of board interaction there that it can teach you the game, and you can learn a lot about how certain security effects resolve very quickly because you will be checking a lot of security. Anyways, that's enough talk about the big blue dog. It's a deck that's inevitably going to get more support without a doubt, right? Thomas is a side protagonist. I can't remember the exact duo tag. I can't remember the term for it. But anyways, he's Marcus's counterpart, right? Like Matt is to Tai, like Henry is to Takato. He is another very important character in the Digimon universe, in the anime at the very least. And this deck will inevitably see support. And while there's talk that the deck's probably going to get hit, unless your name's John Bandai, unless you yourself are John Bandai looking me in the eye right now, telling me, hey, that next ban list is coming up in 2 months. Guess what? BT11 MirageGaogamon's on it. Until I hear you say that to me, I'm not going to believe the deck's getting hit. All right? The deck's not performing nearly as crazy enough or like as oppressive enough to the point where it needs to be hit at any means. Go look at tops, all right? And then come back and talk to me. And with that, that brings us to our final deck of this list. At least I'm going to actually show off, right? ShineGreymon. My old flame, my old lover, how I miss you so. Oh. For those of you who don't know, ShineGreymon was a deck that I mained in BT13 when it became very meta relevant, and I was able to win a store championship with it, and it always will hold a very near and dear place in my heart. It's the first deck that I ever actually max rarity'd at the time. At its base level and its base rarity, the deck is extremely affordable. So, ShineGreymon, a deck that recently just got support with BT17. It is a deck that very much will continue to see support as it is a protagonist deck. So what does ShineGrey do, right? Well, first things first, it has very unique tamer interaction where you basically end up treating Marcus like he's a Digimon, where he can check security, he can block, he can DP reduce, he can gain you memory, and he can even let you Evo for free. And him being a tamer strategy means that it's very hard to punish him. And, you know, as I just mentioned, the whole deck itself utilizes lots of DP reduction and effects that are based around your tamers becoming suspended, which all of your different Marcuses that you have different means of suspending. BT13 Marcus can suspend himself. BT12 Marcus can be treated as a Digimon by paying 1 memory at the start of your main phase to go ahead and swing and then let you Evo for free, and he suspends himself and then just loses his mind. And then there's the new BT17 Marcus, who is... he's a card. He's fine. The deck can potentially have access to very good protections using some of just the general Greymon protections out there, like Greymon X from BT9. If you decide to play more of a red base, which our local ShineGreymon Stan Jeremy, shout out to you. He has done a great job with the deck, and he's done very well with it since then. He's played the deck for like the past 4 sets pretty consistently, and he tends to do pretty well with it. The deck has a very powerful OTK strategy that it can still utilize, but it can even, you know, deviate away from that and just go more control focused with better protections if it wants to sort of slow down its pacing a little bit, but also controlling the opponent's pacing pretty well. And I mean, the funnest thing is, I mean, who doesn't want to have Masaru punch? Like what? Yeah, just, you know, just knocking out Digimon left and right, dude. That's cool. That's cool. He's a kid, and he's punching digital gods. I mean, when you are a deck that can be, you know, at 1 memory and then just push up your level 5 and your Marcus and do this.
Well, I'll go ahead and I'll just play training and I'll choke you to 1. Okay, you got 4 security, huh? Alright, well, we'll go ahead, we'll just push up Rise Greymon and then start a main, pay 1 memory to go ahead and move our BT12 Marcus up as a Digimon. Wait. No, it's no. No. Wait, no!
deck I love. That's so cool. That's so sick. You just global devastation at one memory. Ooh. Yeah. But that all being said, it is a deck that has cons, just like any deck. It relies heavily on its tamers, right? It needs to see Marcus, and oftentimes it won't always have the ability to play him for free, so sometimes you might pass over a good chunk of memory early, which can be a little bit painful. And with that time to set up tamers and having it run so many tamers in the deck, it can also sometimes just sort of brick. Sometimes you won't see the Marcus. Sometimes you'll see too many Marcus and you won't see enough of your Digimon line. The deck can sort of struggle with its ratios that it needs, and that means that it can inevitably end up bricking just a little bit. And aside from all that, it can very much struggle with big immune blockers and redirects. Sort of like how Gallant can struggle with that as well, but even more so because most of the time when you swing, you're not going to do anything. But that all being said, here's the deck list here. I'll let you guys go ahead and take a look over it for a little while. And keep in mind, this is Ben's list. This is one that he's still been actively working on, and he's still going over it even now as we speak. It's a good list, good place to get started, and the deck is all pretty affordable. And so that's all the decks that I have listed for you here today. Most of these decks have profiles on the channels that you can go and check out elsewhere. Some of them are going to be a good bit older, but for ShineGrey and Mirage specifically, if you want to join our Discord, like I said, the link's down below in the link tree description, or in the link tree link down there. You'll be able to go ahead and join our Discord, and you can see the lists in our Discord and the deck discussion channel, and also in deck building as well. And as for Gallant, you can just reference the deck profile we did with Sunny just a couple of days ago. But with that all being said, I did say I was going to go over the structure decks, right? And so Digimon has a cool thing. It has a thing where they do structure decks, which are basically more sort of just like baby's first deck, kind of good place to start entry-level things into the game. And then they have advanced decks. These are supposed to be competitive-ready decks, or, you know, at least as close to, that on release have powerful SR cards and other cards that just are supposed to help just give the archetype a bump it needs. And so far we've only had two of these, right? We've had the Beelzemon one, and then we've had the Terriermon one, the more recent one, ST17, Double Typhoon. These are a good place to start if you are someone who doesn't want to sort of look across different sets and buy singles. If you want to just buy a structure deck and just open that up and just start playing, these are going to be the best bets for you. The Double Typhoon deck with Terriermon and his whole line of Gargo, Rapid, and Mega Gargo. There's a lot of very, very powerful cards in there in general. And it's also a deck that will be seeing more support in the future. It's already seeing more support with the newest set that's coming out in BT19, at least for us English players. It'll be, I think it's going to be in Booster 2.5, not 2.0. So it'll be sometime next year early on, in like late January, early February, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. I'm not looking at the exact thing right now. I'll put the exact little release date thing somewhere down here, at least as close as possible to it. It is a deck that is, you know, going to inevitably see support, and even other sets have support for this deck outside of just the deck itself, right? We have older support that's not very good, but BT16, EX6, and BT17 have all had support for Terriermon or Lotmon, which these decks, and a lot of the cards in them are very sort of interchangeable, and you can swap back and forth between them to build more of a sort of like Cherubi Ace Alliance deck. You can build more of a Rapidmon X focus deck. You can build a Mega Gargomon more focus deck. You can find different ways to build it to your liking, and there's plenty of tools there for you to do so with that. But yeah, to kind of bring the whole Terriermon thing to a close, I don't have a deck to show you, but, you know, when you're playing it and you're doing sort of some of your things, it can sort of feel something like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna attack with Leomon.
I'm gonna Digivolve Rapidmon into
You being the big, tall, Giga Chad cyborg machine bunny that just looks down on the world and says, "How small." You know, it's a good feeling. It can be a good feeling. Mega Gargomon Ace is probably one of the best Ace cards in the card game still. I mean, just being able to lock things down and say, "Hey, you can't Digivolve," is insane. It's an incredibly powerful card. And then, of course, we have the new structure decks that are coming out that feature Digimon from the new Digimon Liberator webcomic, I think is the correct term for it. These are decks that are very cool. They're neat. They feature brand new Digimon and Terramon and Shumon and their respective lines with their new Mega Digimon, Zifaga and Sendromon, respectively. They are officially labeled ST18 Guardian Vortex and ST19 Fable Waltz, Terramon and his line being the first, and then Shumon and its line being the second. These are decks, they're going to have, first of all arts of the training cards, which are very, very powerful option cards that I recommend everyone should have. They're usually almost a 3 or 4 of in almost any deck that isn't too crazy with being multicolored. As long as, even if it's multicolored, as long as they share one same color sort of consistently throughout the deck, these cards are run most of the time. And something to keep in mind, ST18, ST19, and EX7, which is promptly named Digimon Liberators, that's the expansion set, that's what it's called, are all going to be released, I believe, yesterday as of this video's launch. So these are all decks that are available now. You can probably find them at your local card shop. Might even be at your brand name stores like Walmart, Target. But these are a good place to start. And something that's a good rule of thumb with any structure deck or advanced deck that you pick up from Bandai, because the way they design them, they do this on purpose. You need to buy 2. If you want to have a full playset of the SRs, or usually these significant cards that are in these decks, you have to buy 2 of the decks of each. So if you want to, you know, really kind of build a good Safagamon deck and Terramon deck, you need to buy 2 of the Guardian Vortex structure decks. And then from there, you'll go ahead and you'll pick cards from EX7 that are support for his line, and you'll start tossing them in there. And there's a couple of promos that are a little bit expensive, but, you know, you can play around those. You're probably going to want to pick them up eventually, but at least they're playable at a base level without needing it. And the same thing goes for Shumon and Centralmon. It also has the whole line in EX7 that's going to be very important. Admittedly, I think the SRs for both of their decks are significantly better, the ones from EX7 specifically. For their decks, but you know, that's here or there. At least you can get started with those, and this is a decent place to sort of start learning the card game with those decks. But yeah, with that all in mind, I think that about does it. That's gonna go ahead and wrap this up. That's everything I have. If you are watching this video and you are a veteran with who has their own takes and opinions on what you think people should run, please drop it in the comment section below. I know I can be wrong. Look at me. Look at me. But yeah, you know, jokes aside, if you have good suggestions, drop them down below. Let them know. And hopefully it helps you, right? Hopefully it gives you a place to start. And if you're someone who's a veteran watching this video just for funsies because you're bored and you're at work and it's lunchtime and you have nothing else to listen to, I appreciate you. Thank you. I hope that at least this made you laugh, or it was maybe just a little bit informative, or, you know, something like that. I don't know. Have a good time. But yeah, so if you've gotten this far and you haven't already, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. That'll about do it. And, catch you guys on that flippy flip. Bye-bye.